All right. Good morning. Good morning to everyone. And it's a pleasure having you all on the call. Thank you all for joining us at this very hour. It's a pleasure having you all. It's a wonderful day this morning. Okay, so we're going to, while we wait for the time to kick in, we're going to get to know ourselves. But before I continue, can someone please confirm if I am audible enough? Please let me know if I am audible enough in the chat room. Can you hear me clearly? Am I audible? Can someone confirm if I am audible? Okay, okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right. So once again, it is a pleasure to have you all on the call. So we're going to start by getting to know ourselves, right? I know we have people from Ghana, people from, of course, Nigeria and some other African countries. So please quickly introduce yourself in the chat room. Tell us your name, where you're joining us from, and possibly what you do. I mean, this would be also a form of networking for us. So please, let's maximize the chat room. Tell us your name and where you're joining us from, and what you do. All right. So let's have that. Okay. Please use the chat room. Let's get to know you. Tell us your name, where you're joining us from, and what you do. Or if you'd like to unmute yourself, then fine and good. You can as well unmute yourself and speak. All right. Okay. Who is going to go first? Oh, yes, Daniel. Thank you very much. Daniel, you're joining us from where? Okay, you are an environmentalist. You're joining us from where, please? Yes, please don't forget to tell us where you're joining from. Oh, Kaduna, thank you very much, Daniel, for joining us. Okay, can we have others, other people? Please use the chat room, tell us your name, what you do, where you're joining us from. Yes, I'm hoping we're not going to have a very quiet session today. This is going to be also interactive because you'll be asking your questions as the case may be. Okay, Shegun, also an environmental chemist. You're joining us from Unilab, Yaba, okay. Omotego, okay. All right, climate change advocate, okay. Great, great, great. Thank you all for joining us. Yes, other people, please feel free to use the chat room. Feel free to use the chat room. Okay. Feel free to use the chat room. Let's get to know where you're joining us from. Mary from Nigeria, okay, member of an NGO, okay, on special duties officer. Yes, let's have it else. I mean, we are 15 on the call. How many persons have just introduced? We have about 4 or 5. Okay. And we hope to keep to time today. All right. Okay, Getty from Ghana. All right. Great. Thank you for joining us. I know it's still 10 o'clock in Ghana, and thank you for joining us this early. It's like I mentioned, it's going to be a mixed audience from Nigeria, from Ghana, and some other African countries as well. Emmanuel from Nigeria, okay? Thank you for joining us, all right? Global Fraud Examiner, okay, thank you very much for joining us. Okay, yes, maybe we can take 2 more and then we get on with the the webinar for today. Okay, two more. Can we have two more persons? Also. All right, so while we are at that, let me introduce myself, all right? My name is Edith, Ugochukwu Edith, and I am the COO of A4S. It's a pleasure to have you all on the call, and I also have some of my colleagues on the call as well. Mary from Nigeria, okay, member of an NGO, yes, thank you for joining this call. All right, so without further waste of time, I would like us to quickly dive into what we have for today. I know that some other persons will be joining us as we get along with the webinar this morning. Okay, Owen or whoever, Esther, anybody on the call, please admit people as they join this call. Okay.
Yes,
so we don't have people waiting. Okay, thank you very much. All right. So today's webinar will be looking at SDG 13, and there may be some persons who are joining us for the first time. For your information, since this January this year, we have consistently delivered webinars on the SDG. We started from with SDG 1, 2, 3, and on, and today we are on 13, and we are consistent and painstaking with this, and it's a pleasure once again to have you all on the call this morning. And just a brief intro of what we do at A4S, if you're just joining us for the first time. A4S is a Nigerian professional service firm that has supported over 500 clients for more than quality audit and advisory services. And our work, what we do spans across two main categories. We have the governance, risk, performance, compliance, and audit services. And we also have the monitoring, evaluation, and assessment service arm. And this arm actually sees to the delivery of ESG reporting services, SDG integration and impact assessment, and capacity building for sustainable development. Okay, so these are the works we do from the two arms. And this morning session, we have two sessions today. We'll be discussing on looking at this SDG 13. So first session today, we'll be looking at from crisis to action. All right, how we can tackle the climate change. And I'm very delighted to have a very respectable guest on our call today who will be delivering this first session. And he's no other person but Lawrence Akpoterai. All right, Lawrence is doing a fantastic work when it comes to climate change and the SDGs, right? Lawrence is a fellow of the German Academic Exchange Service Center of Excellence, and with research focus on nature-based solutions for climate adaptation in African savannas. And he has worked with the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, where he supported climate adaptation efforts for and amplifying the rights of indigenous people in the faces of the climate crisis. He has also made significant contributions to humanitarian efforts, reflecting his commitment to social development. He is the co-founder of Prime Tech Data and GIS Solution, an organization advancing research and geospatial technologies for development. And he is the executive director of the Lead Impact Initiative, an NGO with advances for climate change and environmental sustainability in Nigeria. And he is passionate about what he does. And ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to have him on the call today. He's joining us from all the way from US. And we thank you, Lawrence, for taking out time to be with us on this webinar today. It's a pleasure to have you. Thank you for joining us. I think you can take it out from here. Please, let's put a round of applause in the chat room as we welcome Lawrence. Lawrence, can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you confirm that you can as well hear me and you can as well see me?
Lawrence, okay. Yes, I can hear you clearly. Thank you very much for joining us.
All right, pleasure is mine. Thank you very much for having me. I I can get started here. I can just go ahead and share my screen.
Right.
All right. Once again, thank you very much for having me. Thank you for
All right.
the introduction. Like you
You're
have
welcome.
said, uh,
While you are at that, I think people might like to know more about you. You can share your LinkedIn profile link in the chat room, so people can also get to link up with you and possibly have other conversations at the end of this session.
that's fine. That's no problem. That's no
Okay.
problem. So I'll just go ahead and share this now. And right, can you confirm that you can see my screen? Let me
Yes, I
switch
can see the screen from here.
Okay, is it currently on what's it called? Slideshow?
Yes, correct. It is.
All right, perfect. Yes, please forgive my voice. Like like you just said, I'm joining in from quite a different time zone, and yeah, I still feel very much like I'm asleep.
That's all right.
But I'll try to do justice to
Oh,
the presentation.
thank you very
Right.
much. Thank you.
Yeah, so
Thank you very much.
let's get right into it. My name is Lawrence, and the Executive Director of the Lead Impact Initiative, the Programs Director at the African Youth Initiative on Climate Change Nigeria, fellow at that African Center of Excellence, and you have some other stories there. I would definitely be happy to connect with you. That's my LinkedIn profile, and that's also my X profile. Happy to talk about climate change, happy to talk about professional development and social impact. We can always connect, trust me. So, moving on to today's conversation, I would start by painting a picture, right? And I hope that we are all able to get the picture I'm trying to paint. This is our society today. This is more like what our society currently looks like. You have floods, you have houses being dilapidated, you have people, children that have been affected, displaced, and subject to very chaotic situations. You have dry lands, desertifications happening. You have drought, which has also affected food security. In fact, from the picture you can see on the screen, it suggests to you that cattle are subject to malnutrition and hunger. That picture could also as well suggest to you the crisis that exists between farmers and herders. On the right, you have what could as well depict damage to crops. Now, I would appreciate if you can engage me in the chat box. What one word can you give to this? I would go first. This is calamity, right? What one word can you as well give to this? I would appreciate your responses in the chat. Just let me know that you're together because this is what the picture looks like in our society today. And I tagged it nowhere to run. Because once you look at the way Nigeria is shaped currently, at the northernmost part of Nigeria, you have drought and desertification occurring. Now, at the southern part of Nigeria, you have coastal flooding, you have regular floods, and then imagine if people from the north are running downwards and people from the south are running upwards. At what point do we save ourselves, right? Where exactly do we now escape to? Now, the interesting thing about this is that it is not just limited to Nigeria alone, right? So, as this is happening in Nigeria, it is as well happening in other parts of the world, taking different shapes and forms, right? Like I said, it's a situation of nowhere to run. So, it begs the question if there is nowhere to run, what then do we do? Before I go into talking about solutions, I want us to have a very good understanding of what the climate crisis is about. There are many persons who talk about climate change, many persons who engage in the conversation, but do not exactly have sufficient knowledge as to what exactly this is. And so I'm going to take us a bit into science class, and I would like you to painstakingly follow through my explanation. Imagine the Earth as, of course, just a space, and within that space, we have a blanket layer, right? So see the Earth for what it is, then imagine we have a blanket over the Earth. So the blanket is more like a middle layer between the Earth and then the sun, right? And so what the blanket does, unlike what many people think that blanket does, which is prevent the sunlight from touching you directly and all of that, the blanket I'm talking about right now is the atmosphere. And what it does is that it has naturally occurring gases. Right, follow my explanation. It has naturally occurring gases which helps to keep the earth warm. Now, without the gases, the earth will be about minus 18 degrees Celsius on the average, right? Meaning it could really be cooler in different locations. And that's one thing you should imagine. So what those gases do, they are naturally occurring. They include things like methane, they include your carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases, which is common to many of us, right? So you should look up greenhouse gases and how they exist. So they exist first as naturally occurring. And so when the sun touches the earth, those greenhouse gases, remember I said it's like a blanket covering, right? Helps to keep the earth warm such that not every ray of sunlight that gets to the earth bounces back. Because typically without the atmosphere, every ray of sunlight that touches the earth still goes back into space. But with the atmosphere, at least a bit of that heat is conserved. Why? It is the heat that keeps us warm. It is the heat that keep your rivers as rivers. It is the heat that keeps operations going. If not, all of your rivers will be ice. You definitely will not be able to live. Plants most likely will not be able to grow and survive. Food is threatened and everything. So you understand that in God's design, He designed the system to maintain a specific balance. But then what happened moving forward? Development came, there was the need to build, there was the need to advance science, there was the need to do a lot of things. And so emissions started taking place. What are emissions? Industrialization would lead to the generation of extra greenhouse gases. Now, we have moved beyond the naturally occurring greenhouse gases to the anthropogenically generated greenhouse gases. And so for every industrial process that is taking place where fuel is consumed and combusted, what we have going into the atmosphere are greenhouse gases. Now, the greenhouse gases has gone now to meet the naturally occurring one and has created extra layers of blankets. And so if normally all you needed to sleep cozy and warm was just one blanket, and now you have about 10 loads of heavy blankets and comforter laid on you for you to sleep. Now, you have moved from sleeping comfortably to sleeping in intense heat, right? And that is what the planet is facing right now. This is the situation of the globe. And remember, I told you that all things are meant to exist in balance. And so when there is a shift in a particular part of the system, it truncates the entire system. And so now there has been a shift in that layering. And so we have excessive greenhouse gas emissions, and as a result, there is excessive warming. Now, this is what we often call global warming. And so we can see now that global temperatures have risen significantly. At the average, between 1.1 degrees Celsius to 1.6 beyond what it was during pre-industrial times. So the planet is hot. Now, the thing is, you might hear 1.1 degrees Celsius, 1.6 degrees Celsius, and you feel like that's not so much, right? Unfortunately, the average means when we do the cumulative and then do the average from every part of the globe, it could as well mean that in some places they've experienced as much as 10 degrees increase, right? And so this is exemplifying what climate change looks like in our today's world. And so as a result, there has been a shift in the Earth systems. Now, this shift is what's now responsible for the extreme events that we are experiencing. And you see things like intense and also recurring floods. It is not just intensifying, it is recurring. I think if you're familiar with Lagos and in fact some parts of Nigeria, not like flood didn't happen, but we experienced them in like maybe after say 5 years, right? You experience floods. But guess what? Lagos already has been flooded multiple times this year. Other parts of Nigeria as well have been flooded multiple times this year. The droughts are intensifying. So you see famine that we know is no longer what it used to be, especially in places that were known for farming. And so you have increased storms. The sea level is also rising, right? For those that stay in the coast, there's a case of Ondo, if you're familiar with the Nigerian terrain. A couple of households, a couple of towns and buildings within the coastal region of Ondo State have been submerged due to sea level rise. So people have lost their homes. People have. I'm helping you paint a picture of the calamity that we now face, which is climate change. And so the ocean is warming, the ocean is as well acidified. Then biodiversity, which is responsible for a balanced system and the services that we need as humans, we are also losing the existing biodiversity that we have. And many species right now face extinction, right? With so many already at risk. This is what our situation looks like. Now, understanding that this is what the crisis looks like, it begs the question, what then is climate action and why is it crucial? Now, every effort that you make, like I am doing right now, to raise awareness, to influence public opinion, to drive policy-related changes, and to take action aimed at mitigating and as well adapting to climate change. Every of those efforts is what is referred to as climate action. So interestingly, I saw in the comments where some persons identified as climate advocates, which is great. People identified as environmentalists, which is superb. These efforts you're taking within your individual space all culminate into what we call climate action. Why then is it crucial? Now, you already understand the extent of the calamity that I've explained to you. So give me a moment. Yes, you understand the extent of the calamity. Sorry, I'm just trying to catch up with the chat box. Okay, good, good, good. Right. So everyone is following me. You can always drop your comments in the chat box as much as you're following the conversation so I can catch up on that. Now, we are seeing all of the damages that have happened and that is still happening, right? And so why is it crucial? Why must we take climate action? It is because the impacts of climate change are intensifying much more than before. The floods are more intense, right? The droughts happening is more intense. Food insecurity is more intense, except you are unaware. Farmers are fighting with herders because of pasture as well as because of agricultural lands. Why? The resources are not exactly as available as they used to before. Why? Climate change has truncated a lot of things. So you don't just sit down and watch, seeing your planet fall in pieces. What then you do is that you take action that can as well influence change and at least solve the problem that we are facing. And so without decisive action, if we don't take action now, lots of communities will face severe consequences. And like I try to paint the picture to you, I want you to be able to imagine it from your perspective, seeing all that I've explained. What consequences, what's the worst that can happen to communities? You can drop that in the chat box. Seeing that as floods are occurring, as drought is occurring, what do you think that would lead to? As biodiversity is getting lost, what do you think that would mean to the common man? Right? What do you think will happen to people who are residing in low-cost areas, who are residing in very vulnerable areas? What do you think will happen to children? What do you think will happen to women? What do you think will happen to the job that you hold so dearly? I want to see all of those reactions on the chat box. And so, if you're able to understand that what we face right now is a severe threat, then you would find it as part of your mission to work towards addressing it. And so I'll just highlight a couple of things to get us into the conversation of driving solutions. So, what then are the forms of climate action that you can take? Now, given the explanation I've made earlier on about what climate change is and how it happens within your environment, how then can you be a part of this solution? How then can you be part of conversation? One key thing which I am big on is education and awareness. Many people are not aware of what's happening. I've had interactions with some community members at the grassroots level, and they tell you that it is God being vexed with them, or they are paying the price for their sins, or the gods of the land has decided not to bless their agricultural endeavors, right? So you need to educate them. You need to make people aware of what climate change is, what is driving it, and what they can actually do to manage the situation at hand. Now, note that, in fact, and I think I'll get to it subsequently as we move on. Now, one of the things you can do is advocacy and campaigns, right? So this picture here is it just exemplifies that where you advocate for the people that have been affected by climate change, and then you as well advocate for climate justice so that the people who and I think everyone is, right? Everyone is a stakeholder. Everyone has very distinct and important role to play in combating climate change. And as so, you can hold people accountable. You can hold the government accountable. You can hold businesses accountable for them to act in the direction of addressing climate change. Another example can be community-based actions, right? So you identify communities that are very vulnerable, communities that are facing this impact, and you get to support them, build together, develop solutions together. Another way to do that is through policy support, right? There are some policies that are not favorable when it comes to climate action. And so you want to enshrine into those policies some climate focused aspects, right, that would promote climate action and sustainable development. You can as well focus on research and innovation. So where I work, I think I work across almost all of these things I have just shared. Yes, so you can work within research and innovation, where you're contributing to advancing knowledge development and knowledge dissemination around climate change through research. There are innovative ideas now that are coming up as alternatives to the things that oftentimes drive climate change. Another aspect of it is climate financing, making money available to champion climate action. Because of time, I just want to run down now from crisis to solution. Let's move from crisis to solution. We understand the crisis, but then how do you tackle the climate crisis beyond the forms of climate action I have shared? One way to tackle the climate crisis is through mitigation. And what does mitigation mean? Mitigation means reducing the amount of emissions that goes into the atmosphere. So now we already have emissions that are layered in the atmosphere. And these gases do not just disappear easily, right? They stay in the atmosphere for hundreds to thousands of years. Now, for the gases in the atmosphere, we have two options, right? To remove them. And then the ones that we are still generating, we can reduce them. To get the point correctly, the gases in the atmosphere, the greenhouse gases, take note of that, not just every kind of gases. The gases in the atmosphere, we can remove them rather, and then the ones we are still generating, because while this conversation is going on, there is still gas flaring taking place. There is still a whole lot of emissions taking place. But beyond just generating those emissions indiscriminately, we can reduce them, then look for strategies as well to remove the ones in the atmosphere. And how can we achieve that? Using things like renewable energy, right? So rather than combusting fuel, we can switch to renewable energy. Then using what we call sustainable land management, right? With actions like reforestation, planting of tree, regenerative agriculture. That means you're able to renew agricultural practice over the time without causing damage to the land. You might want to read up on a couple more of these things. Then energy efficiency, managing the amount of energy we use, the amount of energy we consume, indiscriminate wastage of water, wastage of power supplies. These are practices that we can already start within our individual spaces that definitely will contribute to mitigation. Moving forward, we have adaptation. And by adaptation, what this means is that the gases are already in the atmosphere. And as a result, the Earth system has shifted. So one way or the other, right, even if we achieve zero emissions, because of what has already happened, the consequences would still take place. So as a result, while the consequences are taking place, how can we adjust? How can we manage the consequences that we face? And how can we better cope despite the occurrence of these consequences? That is what adaptation looks like. So climate change is happening, and so there will be impacts. So for farmers, they should think, okay, how can we adapt to the fact that our crops are no longer producing as much? How can we adapt to the threat of flood? And there are solutions. For instance, these are adaptation solutions like climate smart and sustainable agriculture for farmers. For people living around the coast, there can be coastal defenses, and you could do them through natural means or even artificial means, right? Just to create coastal barriers such that when coastal flooding wants to happen, there is at least a level of protection that you're not caught unawares. The thing about adaptation is that I have the knowledge, so I prepare against the impact. For instance, we can have green spaces in urban areas to help us reduce the temperatures. And we can also have heat wave early warning systems where you get notification that it is going to be pretty hot tomorrow. So you need to prepare ahead of going out tomorrow, the things you ought to do, the things you ought to get prepared for and related. One other way we can address this is through nature-based solutions. And that's one field I'm currently very invested in. It is just about using natural means, right, to address climate change. In fact, nature-based solutions can work for both mitigations and adaptation effort, right? So these are things that we can do. And like from the slide is saying, it just basically has to do with things like ecosystem. So rather than reducing the amount of forests that we have, let's focus on planting more forests, let's have more mangroves, let's have more wetlands, let's work on green infrastructure, urban parks, green roof, let our streets be lined with trees. These are things we can invest in, promote land and water management practices. We should manage the land, we should manage the water that we have naturally. Once we do this, we can build resilience against climate change. And then lastly, financing climate action, right? We have public and private investments that can be channeled towards renewable energy. It can be channeled towards nature-based solutions effort. It can be channeled towards low carbon innovations. The government can take charge of this. Companies that are private and even public can take charge of this. There could also as well be public and private partnerships to achieve all of this. So we have a whole lot of opportunities and spaces where as individuals, as enterprises, we can come in to tackle this. There are also things like green bonds, carbon market, and blended finance models that can be used. And for the most vulnerable people that are affected, we need to see how we can channel the finance that we have towards this particular set of people so that it can best address their need. Now, how then do we mobilize actions? In fact, I've touched on all of this already. I just want to make clear the roles of different stakeholders. For the government, they must focus on stronger climate policies and enforcement. The things we do that are a risk to climate change in our environment must be limited, must be mitigated. Now, we must also have in our development plans climate targets. So, as much as we are developing, we are thinking the use of renewable energy. We are thinking of how to improve our agriculture, not just to cope, right, but to thrive even in the face of climate change. So, we are thinking sustainable agriculture rather than business as usual. These are things that the government must look into every area beyond the Federal Ministry of Environment. Effort must be channeled towards that climate action, that climate consciousness in our everyday life. And for businesses, businesses are run using different models. Now, this is the time for businesses to transition into decarbonization, limit your emissions as a business, as an enterprise, right? And then practice circular economy. The fact that every business wants to print paper when things can be done easily using emails, right? Limit your consumption, right? Recycle the things that you use so that we can have a better climatic atmosphere. Then for young people, for civil society, what we can do is what I'm doing right now. Myself, I work on advocacy, I work on education, I work in research, and I work in community engagements, and I do some international engagements as well. So these are things that you can do to further advance the conversation on climate change. Work within your community to implement projects that strengthens climate resilience, mobilize young people, make them aware, and together let's contribute to addressing this impending problem in our society. My call to action is this. The science has become a lot more obvious now, and we are like the first generation of people to fully understand what climate change is about. Now, unfortunately, we are the last that has the power to stop its worst impact. And so, if we do not take action now, in the next 10 years, those who will actually be taking action will not just be taking action alone, but they will be taking action in the face of the worst form of impact happening in their lives. So as they are facing the most severe kind of impact, they will be taking action compulsorily in that state. And so for you, you advocate. Unfortunately, this is not A4, this is A3. So you advocate for ambitious climate policies. I hope you got the joke anyway. Then act in your sphere of influence, right? In your workplace, in your community, in your home, and then amplify the knowledge that you already have. Knowledge you get from this session, amplify it. These are things that you could do from within your space. And I end on this note, act now. The future depends on what we do today. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope to have questions at the end of the conversation. So yes, over to you, Edith. And I'm sorry that I overshot by 4 minutes. Thank you very much for listening.
All right, thank you very much. This is really apt, and I like the fact that you took time to point out the actions that should be done in order for us to mitigate the challenges we're facing with climate change. When you were talking about the financing actions, the nature-based solutions, and the likes, it's actually the part that really should be taken home, because at the end of the day, the planet is ours, and we have to do what we have to do to take care of it, right? So thank you very much. Before we appreciate him, if you do have any questions, you can feel free to unmute yourself and speak, or you put your questions in the chat room. So while we wait for questions, I do have a question actually for you. Right. My question is around what are the youth-led initiatives, that could, or rather, let's put it this way, how can youth-led initiatives contribute to bridging the gap between climate science policy and community actions? From your thoughts, I mean, we are all sharing ideas here. What would you think, or what would you say could be a youth-led initiative that would contribute to bridging the gap between climate science policy and community?
All right, can that person be muted, please?
Can you please mute the person who is speaking?
I can't even find the person.
Okay. I don't know if you got my question,
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yes, I did.
So
all right, thank you very much.
Your thoughts around
So
that?
one thing I've been able to do today, I think, in my opinion, is to help everyone understand the enormosity of the climate crisis, right? And it goes beyond all of the things I've said. And so it now becomes our responsibility to look at the different aspects of all of the things I've said and then think of solutions in that regard. So as a young person, as an individual, you understand what is driving climate change, and then you're already thinking solutions. Now, you can as well start, and I think one very important place to start from is capacity development. I am not a fan of people going out to address things that they do not already have some form of good knowledge about, right? So you want to strengthen your knowledge on the same conversation. You want to read up more on the kind of solutions that the average community needs. For instance, the average community within your own local context, right? What are the impacts that they are facing? For instance, I might not be in the US now and say that the climate change is most demonstrated in terms of say flooding, for instance, because that might not necessarily apply much to their local context. I might be having conversations related to hurricanes, right? So you want to understand your local context very well, such that you would be able to tailor solutions that they need. And I'll give you some examples. For some vulnerable communities, what they need first is awareness, right? They need to be aware so that they can emancipate themselves. Then from awareness, we need community-based solutions. So I know the science, local people might not know the science, but I go to them and then we have interactions. And this is what we call grassroots mobilization, right? Grassroots engagement. I go to them and then we start having conversation. And then they share their own perspective. I share mine. And I try to enlighten them that this is what exactly is happening. And then the next thing is, okay, what are the solutions? And then we have conversations on what they can do. Oftentimes and not, the vulnerable communities have a better solution of adaptation because their farms have currently been affected, right? And I'm not very quick to jump into solutions because sometimes if we assume the problem on behalf of the people, would as well assume the wrong solutions, right? And that's why I am big on stakeholders engagement. So as a young person, if you want to engage community, go to the level of the community to understand the problems they face with regard to climate change. And if it's related to their farming practice, then we can begin to talk about sustainable agriculture. We can begin to talk about climate smart practices. Okay, how about we do this? How about we use this method to farm? And then interestingly, I know people who are doing beautiful things within the agricultural space related to climate change adaptation. And then those are examples we can use to encourage these local people. For some local people, what they face is flooding. Maybe they are at the coast, right? Then we want to, through understanding that their problem is flooding, we want to start talking about how to generate funds for maybe coastal barriers engineering, or how we want to plant mangroves using nature-based solutions, like I talked about, to be able to build barriers against floods. But you don't jump into giving solutions, right? If you've not understood well enough the local context. So in summary, develop capacity on the issue, engage with the community to better understand where it pinches them the most, and then tailor and craft your solution in that direction. Beyond that, like myself, you can do research, understand the problem better, read well to understand the solutions that are being applied, and then communicate the same, right? So beyond research, what I do is that I try to communicate my findings through events like this. I try to communicate my findings through other engagements beyond just the classroom or beyond just the academia. And I think that's one very good place to start from.
Amazing, fantastic. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts to that question. Okay, so we do have three persons who wish to ask questions. So we go first with Gatti. Gatti, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, I hope you are all doing very well.
Great.
Lawrence, Lawrence, I want to thank you for just the brief but detailed interaction you've had with us over the past few minutes. But then, having moved from business background to the climate change space, I have seen that there's a lot of work going on by scientists and by other people in academia. But then I wanted to, so I'll pick it as an observation and a question. I have seen that there's a lot of application, there's a lot of interaction going on online and all that, but then the very people who need to get a message from the affected areas are not really getting the messages, okay? So I wanted to ask, what can we do to be able to trickle down the message to the ordinary Ghanaian, to the ordinary Nigerian, to the ordinary Senegalese, and all over the world? Because trust me, climate change and its related issues is a very scientific and very complex thing to understand. Even if you pick all the things that you've talked about, adaptation, mitigation, and all that, even you alone, you cannot even occupy all those things. So I wanted to ask, how do we make it very simple? Because we have, for example, more mobile phones than human beings on the planet. So what are the key solutions? What are the key solutions to drive the message down in terms of awareness, in terms of education? Thank you very much.
Okay, Edith, can we have it such that I answer one after the other, or it would be preferred that we go take all the questions and then I give all of the answers?
Okay, so what we're going to do at this moment would be, for those whose hands are up, please put your question in the chat room. We have a keynote speaker on the call who will be delivering a keynote speech. And after that, then we will come back and Lawrence will take your questions and would answer them. So please put questions in the chat room. We've already listened to Gatti and we will come back. Waste of time, ladies and gentlemen. We have a keynote speaker on the call who is representing Dr. Iniobong Abiola-Awe. Dr. Iniobong Abiola-Awe is the Director of Climate Change from the Federal Ministry of Environment here in Nigeria. And on the call representing her is Mrs. Asmau Jibril, and she will deliver a keynote for joining us. We know you have a very busy schedule, but we are pleased to have you. Please, the floor is open. Can you take it over from here? Oyin, is she still on the call?
I think she has left, or she's having issues. Let me reach out to her.
Okay. Please check. Yes, reach out to her while we fill up that gap. Okay. We can take questions while we wait for her to get back on the call. We can take questions. Do we have questions in the chat room? Okay. Yes, there's a question in the chat room, Lawrence. I believe you've seen that. What are the youth-led initiatives? I think I've asked question around this, and Lawrence have answered that. Okay, no more questions. Okay, Lawrence, I think you can go ahead to answer the question from Gatti while we wait for Mrs. Jibril to join us on the phone.
All right, yeah, kindly give me a moment. And I think one person's hand is up. We can as well take that. I'll just take notes of them, and then maybe I'll just answer together.
All right then. Omojewe, I hope I got that correctly. Please feel free to unmute yourself and speak.
Oh, good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much for this wonderful privilege. Sincerely, it escaped me that there will be a meeting today. I just checked my mail and I saw the Zoom and I logged in. I am carrying out my program, my PhD research on climate change and newspaper. So I pick interest, but I found out that it's like there are no centers. So what I want to ask, are there centers for climate change? Because I'm majoring on climate mitigation. So that if there are centers where I can be guided and know more about it, I did some certification with UNCC, but I want to know more. If there are centers in Nigeria, in Southwest, where I can go to and get more information, please, I will be glad. Thank you very much, ma'am.
All right, thank you for your questions. Lawrence, I think you've taken that. And we have Mrs. Jibril back on the call. Oyin, can you please make her co-host? Thank you very much, Madam Jibril, for joining us. We had taken your introduction, but I guess your network glitched. So thank you very much for joining us. Madam Jibril is representing Dr. Image from the Federal Ministry of Environment. Thank you very much for joining us. Please, the floor is open. You can take it over from here.
Hello, everyone. Good morning.
Good morning,
I hope
madam.
everyone
Thank
is
you.
doing well.
Oh, yes.
Sorry, I
doing
don't on my video, my internet is not stable, so I don't want to get disrupted as I speak.
All right.
Yes.
All right, madam.
Okay. So I'm representing the Director, Department of Climate Change, Federal Ministry of Environment. She's on to another assignment, so she asked me to deliver her keynote address. So as I speak now, just it's the director speaking. So you've introduced me already. I'm Asma Ojibril. I'm an assistant director at the Department of Climate Change. And I welcome everyone to this event, which is very timely. Of course, we can all feel the brunt of climate change in our environment. So today marks a significant day in climate action, showcasing collaboration between the government and civil society organizations like A4S in advancing the SDG 13, a mission crucial for our survival and prosperity. The federal government of Nigeria established the Department of Climate Change within the Federal Ministry of Environment to coordinate national efforts towards implementing the Climate Change Convention, the Kyoto Protocol, and the Paris Agreement. Nigeria has been a party to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, that's the UNFCCC, since 1992, and ratified the convention in 1994, and of course the Paris Agreement in March 2017. So the SDG 13 calls for urgent global efforts across 4 key pillars: mitigation, adaptation, resilience, and awareness. Mitigation involves reducing greenhouse gas emissions through renewable energy transitions and sustainable practices to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees centigrade. Adaptation focuses on strengthening resilience in vulnerable communities by improving climate-smart infrastructure, early warning systems, and sustainable agriculture. Resilience entails building long-term capacity to withstand climate shocks through ecosystem restoration, disaster preparedness, and economic diversification. Meanwhile, awareness drives action through climate education and policy advocacy, ultimately promoting collective action to address the climate crisis. Recent climate-related disasters such as the floods and droughts in the northern part of the country underscore the need for increased climate action. Rising temperatures threaten livelihoods and food security, requiring collective action from all stakeholders. The government is taking the lead in climate action by developing regulatory requirements and creating an enabling environment for all actors to contribute to climate adaptation and mitigation efforts. Some of the key initiatives undertaken by the government include the National Climate Change Policy, which serves as a framework for managing climate change risks and promoting sustainable development. Additionally, Nigeria has set targets to reduce greenhouse gas emissions through its initial and updated nationally determined contributions, the NDCs. The country is also implementing a national action plan on short-lived climate pollutants to reduce emissions, exploring green bonds and climate finance initiatives for innovative financing, and promoting cleaner cooking solutions through the National Clean Cooking Policy to improve public health. Furthermore, the National Action Plan on Gender and Climate Change integrates gender considerations into climate policy and programming, while the National Adaptation Plan is currently being developed to enhance climate resilience. We also have the Climate Change Act, which established the National Council on Climate Change. These initiatives demonstrate Nigeria's commitment to addressing climate change and promoting sustainable development. Achieving SDG 13 requires collective action, as no single entity can tackle climate change alone. Building on the government's strong policy foundation, partnerships with civil society organizations, the private sector, local communities, academia, and international stakeholders, and also the youth are crucial for scaling impact and driving meaningful progress in climate action. A call to action today. I challenge every stakeholder, government agencies to strengthen enforcement of climate policies, businesses to innovate for sustainability, citizens to adopt climate-smart practices, and development partners to increase funding for adaptation. The recent floods in Mokwa, coastal states, and droughts in the north are stark reminders of the urgent need for climate action. Let us act with urgency, unity, and ambition to secure a silent, resilient net zero future for Nigeria. SDG 13 is not just a goal, it's our collective responsibility. As the African proverb wisely says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Let us journey together towards a sustainable future, and let us start now. Thank you, and God bless. Thank you, Edith. I'm done.
Thank you very much, Madam. That was a very heartwarming keynote. I mean, SDG 13 is not just a goal, it is a collective responsibility. And the planet is ours, and we are the only ones who can keep it safe for us. Thank you very much. That's heartwarming. Ladies and gentlemen, let's appreciate Madam Jubril for her time on the call this morning. Thank you very much. Let's put a round of applause in the chat room for her, please. Thank you very much, Madam. We are grateful and we look forward to having more collaborations with the ministry. All right, thank you very much. And do have a wonderful day ahead of you. All right. So, okay, so yes, please let's appreciate Madam as I guess she has many other things to attend to, a busy woman indeed. So thank you very much. Now we'll go back to our questions. I don't know if you've gotten more questions. I saw them in the chat room, Lawrence. I guess you've taken note of those questions. And so we will take a few questions now. However, we promise that we are compiling all the questions we have in the chat room, and the ones that has been sent to us privately. We will compile these questions and we will send them to Mr. Lawrence to give an answer to them. If we are not able to take it all on the call right now, he will give answers to them or share his thoughts about them, and we will email it to everybody, as well as the link to this to the recording of this webinar. But let's start with some questions first. Lawrence, are you still on the call? I think we can start with the first question now.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm on the call and I can try responding. Okay, unfortunately, my camera is not coming on again, but I can as well just proceed, right?
Yes,
so the first question I noted, which I can't remember who that was from. So what can we do to make sure that the grassroots people have the right information? How can we make it simple, rather? What are the key solutions, right? So I think the greatest what would I call it, harm that we'll be doing to ourselves is thinking that there is somebody that is coming to save the planet on our behalf. That is the greatest harm we'll be doing ourselves. So we asked the question, okay, how can we do this? How can we do this? Who should do this? Meanwhile, we can actually be the solutions that we are indeed looking for. And so we have people, young people, I would say, who are making efforts just like myself and even much more to ensure that this message clearly gets to the grassroots. And this is what community engagement is about, like I said earlier. Don't wait for other people to be the harbingers of solutions, right? Form a team. As a young person, once you're committed to doing this, you can do this alone. But like that African proverb said, right? If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, you go together. While you can do this alone, you can choose to do it with people. Go down to the communities to engage them. Speak in the language that they understand. Make them feel like they are part of the solutions that you are bringing, right? So, like I would say, depending on what you're doing, and I think from the chat, I saw that there are some people working on research. One very important part of your research should be community engagement. Engage communities, and from what you find, engage other stakeholders. And I think that's what research is about, and that's what I'm trying to focus on. So your research should not just stop at publication. From your research, draw out key solutions, engage with the communities that you work with, see what their insights are, understand the issue from their own perspective, and then begin to share your thoughts. One of the things I do, and I think I recommend as well, you have thoughts on climate change, you have solutions you found, share them on LinkedIn, share them on your social media, share them to everyone that you can, put it out there. One good thing I can say for sure is that in the past 5 years, the conversation on climate change has become so broad and wide and relatable, right? 5 years ago, there were more people who did not have an understanding or an idea of what climate change is like. They didn't know what climate action is. But because of the constant hammering on the theme of climate change that myself and other young people, as well as other stakeholders, have been doing, then I think it is more common. So you can join as well to work within your local community. And I think this question also goes down to what somebody else asks. Okay, what initiatives can you contribute to? There are myriads of initiatives that are already going on. There is across campuses, there are SDG hubs, right? Across some campuses, there are climate change hubs. Within societies, you hear things like Center for Sustainable Development. I'm the executive director of the Lead Impact Initiative. There is the African Youth Initiative of Climate Change, where I'm programs director, coordinating a couple of climate action events and programs across different parts of Nigeria. Which is so these things are happening. I might not be able to identify all of the initiatives. There are people who have founded initiatives that are focused on sustainable agriculture, and that is what they are doing. The good thing is that once you make efforts to begin to solve those problems within your sphere by connecting with the right people, engaging with the right community, and implementing the right solutions, interestingly, resources will begin to gravitate your way, right? I've had funds to implement certain projects that were not by my personal funds, right? Because we're working on certain community projects that other stakeholders are interested in. Share these things outside. All of a sudden, you have people willing to partner with you, and they appreciate the work you're doing, and they think they want to be a part of it. And these are things you can do. So for your local context, research on organizations that exist that are implementing climate solutions. And trust me, wherever it is you are right now, there are myriads of them. Trust me, you just make your findings, then join. Use your skill to contribute. If you want to contribute to advocacy, if you're a program manager, join the program management team, right? Coordinate climate project, implement solutions, engage communities. If you're working on research, do the same. But one very good thing is for everything that you find, always share them. So one of the things I do after my research is I could publish an article, which is fine, an academic article, but afterwards, I would write blogs, right? I would write simple short posts that I can share across platforms. So my LinkedIn profile is also a profile where I blog a couple of things I find. I also, in presentations like this, all of these insights are not just coming from generic understandings of what climate change is. They're also coming from lived experiences of what I have found in the field, right, that I can share with you. And so these are steps that I think that as young people, wherever it is that we are, we can as well take action. Then for the question on what exactly is Nigeria doing to tackle that? I think you've also heard from a representative from the Department of Climate Change. There's a whole lot of work going on in that regard. And if you do not follow the conversation, if you do not search for it, you really would not find. You will not know that there are a lot of things going on. But make your search. And thankfully, we had a representative speak at length about what they are currently working on. You also have civil society organizations that are working on the same thing. The other day, I had to facilitate the sessions for young lawyers. It was also related to climate change. So every field is part of the conversation. You want to look out for those organizations. You want to reach out to them. You want to tell them you're motivated, and you also want to support what you're doing. And of course, there's enough room for everybody to volunteer. There's also a question on, I think, how can I get more SDG 13 collaboration for your PhD? Yes, so I'll just share, there is the African Youth Initiative on Climate Change, which has a broad scope in Africa. In Nigeria, there is the Center for Sustainable Development. There is also the Office of Climate Change and I think, what's it called now, circular economy in Lagos, right? Across different states, you have the Ministry of Environment that typically should have a climate change department. I'm not vast as to how many does right now, but you can always find out. So you want to reach out to those organizations, check, and then see how you can leverage the resources that they have. And one good way to do these things, some of those questions we are asking, we can just ask those questions or ask for partnerships online, and you see organizations that would be recommended. Some of them might even come directly to you, and then they can be a very good source for your data if you're working on your PhD. They can also be very good for collaborations. Now, I can see 12 comments in the chat. I don't know if there are questions, but let me just check. Okay, and if I've done well to answer your question, please you can do a thumbs up or something. Okay, I think I can see that already here. Yeah, apt and brief. Thank you for such that. Yeah, all right, wonderful. Now, what are the plans as SDG to eradicate poverty and for participants? I don't think I understand that. Maybe Edith can work on that question. Thanks for the insightful presentation. Do we have a platform for SDG 13 in Nigeria? Yes, like I just talked about it, you have many platforms for SDG 13. You just need to find the organizations working on the same. There are several. I work with 2 of such organizations, and I've mentioned them. So just find, there is no limit to what you would see when you search. So I think I've been able to exhaust all questions I found. If I missed anyone, please just let me know.
All right. Okay, thank you very much, Lawrence, for joining us on the call today. It's been very insightful and highly enlightening hearing you talk about these areas about climate action, climate change, and the likes. And so, ladies and gentlemen, Lawrence is joining us from the US, and we had to wake him up so early this morning. I saw someone's chat that his voice is not too clear. I believe eventually it got clearer because, you know, we woke him up. I mean, it's quite early for him, but he had to be on the call because he's passionate about what he does. So thank you very much, Lawrence. Let's give a round of applause in the chat room as we appreciate Lawrence for his time with us on the call today. Thank you very much, Lawrence, and do enjoy the rest of your day. All right. So I would quickly give a few other announcements. Okay. We have a training, a free foundation training on ESG coming up on the 22nd of August. So please do well. I think the link to this training, it is a free training. It is a free training. Do well to register, and we'll get you carried along as far as preparations for this training is concerned. It is free, and you get your certification at the end of the training, a globally recognized certificate at the end of the training. And most importantly for us, we have our long-awaited summit coming up on the 30th of October, African Sustainability Perspectives. That is the part of this summit, and we have great personalities who will be joining us on this summit. It is a virtual summit, And please share the link in the chat room. People, you can feel free to register and get ready for this big day. We have people joining us from the United Nations. We have people joining us from different government parastatals. There will be panel sessions and lots more. There will be breakout sessions. It's going to be massive on that very day. So please, if you're on the call and you would like to partner with us on in the delivery of this summit on the D-Day, if you're on the call, please do reach out to us. Owen, I think we can put a contact number that we can be reached via in the chat room. Please reach out to us. We are free to collaborate with you. And we also open for sponsorship. What we're doing at A4S in terms of pushing the SDGs, it's something we're very passionate about, and we need sponsors, we need partners to be able to keep sounding and propagating the gospel of the SDGs, because the planet is ours, the world is ours, and we have to succeed. The world has to move forward, and we all have to be happy at the end of the day. So please feel free to reach out to us for partnership, for sponsorships. We are very open to collaborate with you. And then we have trainings coming up. We have trainings coming up for October, for November, for December. These are important trainings. You can reach out to us, whichever one that aligns with your organization or with what you do. Feel free to reach out to us, and let's take it up from there. And then for these particular trainings, we're looking out for collaborations with institutes, with organizations, and we can discuss on these trainings, how we can train either a number of staff within your organization or a number of staff within your institute based on these standards that you see on the screen. And guess what? You would get a free foundational training for them. And if you want to go further in becoming a lead implementer, as the case may be, then we can take it further from there. But for the foundation courses, they are all free, and we're ready to collaborate with your organization or your institute. Okay, so I think, let me see if there are questions. So for the recording, the link to the recording will be sent to everyone's email. Okay, you registered when you joined this call, so you would get the links to the recording shared to your emails. And please do well to follow us. We have updates, great updates on our social media handles about SDGs and lots more. So thank you very much for joining us on today's call. I hope you had value for your time, and I hope you enjoyed your session with us. So we'll see you again, and we'll keep you updated either via emails or any other means about our upcoming webinars and other programs. So thank you very much. Do enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll keep in touch. Stay happy and stay blessed. Welcome. Thank you very much. Thank you.